What's up, cool kids, and welcome back to another episode of the Langston Frazier Show. Happy Tuesday. I'm your host, Langston Frazier. Thanks for listening to the fifth episode with Anthony Ward, a senior from Detroit, Michigan, in the PGA Golf Management Program at UMass. I hope you guys are all doing well, staying safe indoors amid this pandemic currently facing the world. This virus is really ruthless, and I hope it gets better. I just want to let you guys know, throughout the recording, you might hear some birds chirping in the background, my dog bark occasionally throughout the duration. Everything is okay. It was just a beautiful day outside, so I wanted to record the episode outside. But a lot's happened in the last week, so I really want to just real quickly give you a sports update from around the world, and then we'll jump into the episode with T.D. Luten. So, reported on Monday, the 30th, the NFL draft said it might be remotely running its draft 15 miles away from the commissioner's house, Roger Goodell, on April 23rd through the 25th, right outside of their NFL headquarters that is based in Manhattan. So that's kind of different. They've never really done that before, so I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I guess everybody's really getting used to the working from home aspect, and I'm guessing they're going to try to do the same thing. Jumping into soccer, the Premier League announced on last Friday the 4th that it's going to suspend play indefinitely, and a quote from their press release, only when it's safe and appropriate to do so, end quote. The league is going to resume play, and it's also going to provide financial assistance to the lower ranked league clubs in their league. But they're currently looking at the situation. A restart date for the league has not been selected yet, but they're looking at all the possibilities and speaking with their stakeholders, and they're going to have a date soon enough. So we just got to hang tight for that. Now, this is really cool. Jumping in the men's basketball, just announced this past Saturday, the National Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame announced that the Hall of Fame class is going to include Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, and Kevin Garnett. That's incredibly cool, especially with the recent passing of Kobe Bryant. I think everybody thinks he deserves it, so I know his family is really happy. It's a bummer that he can't be there physically, but I know when they actually get to the induction ceremony that it's really going to be a special opportunity for everybody involved. And then moving on to women's basketball, also announced for the Hall of Fame, Tamika Catchings, who played 15 seasons in the WNBA with the Indiana Fever, also being a 10-time WNBA All-Star, winning 4 gold medals with Team USA, is also going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And then off of that news, the WNBA is also going to postpone the start of their season. According to the Associated Press, the league was scheduled to open training camps on the 26th of April, and the regular season to begin on May 15th. But they're going to hold, also like the NFL, virtual draft on April 17th. So the league also does have a bigger opportunity to be flexible with their schedules due to the postponement of the Summer Olympics. That's been rescheduled to July 23rd through August 8th of 2021, and they were supposed to be off for a month-long break to allow their players to be in that competition in Tokyo starting July 10th. So that's some really positive news, and also it will give some of their teams time to reorganize, since some of the biggest hit cities of the coronavirus, like New York, the Liberty play there, the Seattle Storm, Connecticut Suns, and the Las Vegas Aces also play in those areas, and they're being affected too. So I think it's good for all parties. Now, something that I really love to cover, college sports, college golf in particular. The NCAA and the Division I Council voted last Monday on the 30th to grant an extra year of eligibility for all spring sport athletes, including men's and women's golfers, and though the decision-making process will be left up to the individual institutions as far as financial costs, the teams will be allowed to carry more players on scholarships. On average, the male will receive 4.5 scholarships, the women 6.5 scholarships, for the next seasons, or for next season, to account for the extra seniors who want to take up that extra chance of an extra year of eligibility. But for winter athletes, unfortunately, their spring days, or their days of competing in competition, have come to an end. Now, this is a mainly golf podcast, so we're going to jump into the golf. The USGA and the R&A has postponed the Curtis Cup, which is featured in June, features some of the best amateur golfers in the US and Great Britain on the women's side, and that will take place next summer of 2021 in Conway Golf Club in Wales. That date has not been announced yet. We're hanging tight for that date. Hopefully it'll be out soon. Now, it's Monday morning. Everything happens on Monday, so I'm really glad I'm recording this podcast on Monday. Breaking news this morning: the chairman of Augusta National Golf Club in the Masters tournament has come out with some really good positive news for a lot of golfers, especially the amateur golfers in the game of golf. And basically what he has announced for the Augusta National Women's Amateur is they made the difficult decision to cancel this year's tournament, but each player who was accepted as a player and received an invitation will be invited back to compete in the 21 championship, provided they're still an amateur. So that should be really interesting to see what happens. I know a lot of females in the game of golf typically play that senior year and then turn pro, and especially with the second year of this tournament happening, that could make a lot of these top-ranked amateur golfers on the women's side in the world kind of think of where their plans are going to go. So they might have to wait until a complete whole nother year for that to happen, to play in that tournament, or even if they want to get the shot to play at that event. So on to the Q School, designed for players to gain LPGA Tour status and some of the Symetra Tour status. They've been pushed back again due to the spread of the virus. And Q School, the first stage was planning to be in August. It's now been rescheduled for October. The second and third stages will take place in November and December, respectively. For the most part, it's going to be all brand new golf courses due to some of the weather conditions in the country around that time. But I think it's going to work out for them to kind of get that next step in their career. Also, it's going to be announced that that tour stage or that Q School stage is going to be shortened. Typically, it's a longer spread of time, 2-3 weeks. It's going to be shortened down to about a week and a half, 90 holes is what I'm hearing, reported by Golf Channel's Randall Mel, according to their website. Now, in regards to the Symetra Tour, the next 5 stops from early May to mid-June has been postponed. Only 2 stops as of right now have been rescheduled. The Four Winds Invitational has been rescheduled for July 31st through August 2nd in South Bend, Indiana. In the IOA Championship, previously that was going to be in March in Georgia, has been rescheduled for the 21st through the 23rd of August in Beaumont, California. So, still sticking with the women's golf here, we're going to jump to the LPGA. I'm really curious when we're going to see the cream of the crop of the ladies again tee it up, and announced just a few days ago that's going to be in June, mid-June. The LPGA announced that we won't see them back in action until the Walmart NW Arkansas Championship in Rogers, Arkansas. That's going to make 14 events affected due to the virus, 10 canceled, 10 postponed and 4 canceled. Now, jumping over to the men's side, it looks like the PGA Senior Championship that was going to be at Harbor Shores, the host site, is going to be canceled. But the golf course is not going to miss out because it's going to be back in 2022. Next year's edition is going to take place from May 27th to the 30th at Southern Hills Country Club in Oklahoma. So that should be really fun to see, especially we get everybody back in the swing of things and kind of get out of this normal of everything being postponed and canceled. And then on the USGA side, the women's US Open that was going to take place in June is now going to be pushed back just before Christmas, the 10th through the 13th at the Champions Golf Club in Houston. Now, the fact that everybody really wants to know, these majors on the men's side for the PGA Tour, their schedule is still rapidly changing due to this virus, and that's kind of where everything is right now. Whether it's going to happen, it's going to move, and let me just read you what the brand new schedule is going to be like when they get started. So according to these dates, just announced this morning, they've come up with the following schedule. They're going to play the PGA Championship from August the 3rd to the 9th at Harding Park, still staying at the same location. The US Open is going to be from September 14th to the 20th at Wingfoot, same location. And the Masters just announced it's going to play in the fall, like we previously suspected. It was going to be possibly in October. They've decided to play their tournament November 9th through the 15th of that week. And then also just announced this morning the Open. Everybody thought they were going to be rescheduled, but I guess with so much golf that they have to get in, the Olympics coming next year and they have to start qualifying for that, they just decided to cancel the whole thing for this year. But coming back next year, they're still going to be at Royal St. George's, so that's really good to hear for those players that are from that area and wanted to play in that event. So, real quick, before we get into the interview, there's a whole bunch of negative news and stuff being pushed back, but we do have some good news for you. Former collegiate golfer that rose to fame in the 2018 NCAA National Championship, Haley Moore, staying out at Arizona, who won her match and gave Arizona the win over Alabama that year, has just won as an LPGA Tour rookie on the Cactus Tour, collecting $2,500, beating out 16 other players in a 3-day event that concluded on last Thursday at the Sun City Country Club in Arizona, and she shot 65, 69, 65 to finish 13 under par. So for all the latest golf news in the world of sports, make sure you visit golfchannel.com and NBC Sports. And for the status of golf courses opened or closed in the area due to the virus, visit golfadvisor.com/COVID-19. Now, it's time for the interview you've all been waiting for. I'm about to sit down with a guest who has a great relationship with the game of golf, a lover of the game, some amazing stories along the way. He's built up an incredible career, and I think it's going to just keep building and building. It's T.D. Luten of T.D. Luten Golf. So stick here for that great interview just ahead after this quick break. And with that, let's jump into the 6th episode of The Langston Frazier Show. So this is a conversation I've been waiting for a really long time. He's a jack of all trades in the game of golf, in my opinion. His career is definitely still on the rise. Joining us from Raleigh, North Carolina, is T.D. Luten, proud owner of T.D. Luten Golf. T.D., welcome to the Langston Frazier Show podcast. What's up?
Not too much. Thanks for having me.
So, how's everything going? How's the family?
The family's amazing. As you know, we have an 11-month-old beautiful little girl, and life is as I knew it has changed dramatically, but for the better. Have never been happier. So,
Good.
although we're
Good.
quarantined together,
That is true.
life is good. Life is real good.
What's that life like?
You know, with What I'm doing right now with my business, I go to my clients, and so obviously I'm not willing to jeopardize my health, my clients' health, or my family's health by getting on a plane or really even getting in a car. So I shut everything down for a little while, and because of my wife's position, she's actually on some high ranking. I'm not sure if it's countywide, statewide emergency response team, but so I'm watching the baby for the most part during the day, and
There you
she's
go.
kicking my butt. Oh my goodness, she's got way more energy than I do. So
Right, the one time you thought you had energy, and you're like, nope, not happening.
no man, she's but I mean it's amazing watching her grow and pick up new habits and new words on kind of a daily, weekly basis. Yeah, I wouldn't
There you go.
change this for anything, in terms of
Good.
in terms of the looking at the bright side. I don't have to look very far to see the positives going through this experience.
Definitely. So you're based in Raleigh, North Carolina, but where are you originally from?
I was born in Michigan, but only lived in Michigan for about 3 years.
Okay.
And then my dad took a job, left Michigan State and took a job at UNC. And so I grew up on UNC's campus for a number
There
of
you
years,
go.
went to the daycare center for the faculty, and my mother taught elementary school in Chapel Hill. Then we moved to Durham, then we moved to Raleigh, and I actually graduated high school in Raleigh. So, I mean, for the most part, this is home. I've been here for the majority of my life, the big
So one
majority
of
of
the
my life.
things I'm interested in knowing how I start pretty much every podcast, and this one gets people for Get Spinner. You're from Raleigh, North Carolina. Describe Raleigh, North Carolina in 3 words and tell me why.
Mm, in 3 words. Oh boy. Uh, do they have to flow together or three different adjectives?
It's up to you. You can
So
give
I'd
me
say
you
it
can
like
give me
this.
dash.
I'd say still southern, but and kind of have dot 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 behind that. Be we're still in the South. Black kid playing golf my whole life. I've had some interesting experiences, but it's 2020. I don't think it's ever been better for someone like myself or yourself to have an opportunity to work in the golf industry, to have credibility, to have you know to be judged based on my resume and my character and my results rather than just my skin color. And so,
Yeah.
I think when I meet people and they ask me what I do, and I say, well, I'm a private golf coach, and I have a golf preparatory or a college preparatory placement business. I can see a lot of people's literally their brain bounces. They're like,
Yeah.
"Excuse me, you do what? You're." And so sometimes I'll get a good question. They'll say, "Oh wow, um so you help kids get into college?" And that's a good question. A bad question is, so you play golf? It's like, obviously,
Right.
you know. Um,
Right. Exactly.
I can usually judge a person's understanding of the reality of the 2020 by their response to my answer. But there's some good people out there, and I do my best to avoid the bad ones.
So, what really got you into playing golf? Going back to the beginning of your career, what got you into playing golf?
Even before career, I think, my dad played golf. I had a golf club in my hands in diapers, like the Tiger Woods type stuff. My dad wasn't
Mm-hmm.
quite the same intense. He didn't have the same intensity around golf. Ironically, you know, I was gonna say as a Earl Woods, but ironically, Earl Woods played baseball in college. My dad played baseball at college, King College in Ohio State. He was an All-American, great athlete. Um, but baseball was my first sport, so I played the league. Was an all-star, all that stuff. But he learned golf from my mom's dad, my grandfather, who was a Tuskegee Airman, war hero, Congressional Medal of Honor winner, recipient, um, and you know, back in the after World War II in the 50s, 60s, 70s, black people didn't have a lot of places to play golf, but because he
That's
was
true.
a decorated, uh, fighter pilot, um, he had opportunities to play on the bases and had opportunities to play with the other officers. And so, he became a pretty darn good golfer. And then when he met my dad, he introduced it to my dad, my dad being a baseball player and a good athlete, probably I'm sure, and as competitive as he is, and I've no doubt picked up that trait from him. Um, he was addicted and is still addicted.
Very cool. So you fast forward a couple years, college hits the books. You decide to go to one of the best HBCUs in the country, hands down. And everybody likes to start this debate, especially in the DMV area. You know, which is the real HU? Howard University or Hampton University? Both my parents went to Hampton University. Your
I'm a Hampton
uncle
grad. Right,
went
right,
to
right.
Howard University, but you made the right choice and you went to Hampton University. Tell me how that experience was. I know you studied in government and politics, which you're not in right
Yeah.
now. So how'd that come apart?
Well, a couple things. Rewind back to looking at colleges. I had some partial golf scholarships at other places. Some majority schools will call them. Mainly in North Carolina, I didn't understand the recruiting aspect of playing golf in high school and college. Um, I just kind of knew I was good enough to play because I played with other guys and hoped somebody would find me. And reached out to some folks at Hampton. I'm pretty sure my dad did. Matter of fact, I had a really pretty cousin, god sister, who was going to play volleyball at Hampton. So that put, honestly, that put Hampton on the map for me. But we, had some interest in Hampton, and then found out about this tournament that is kind of defunct, unfortunately. At the time, it was called the National Minority College, Golf Association National Championship, and so they had a high school
Mhm.
division and a college division. And the year before I played, I'm not sure if Tiger played or if he did a clinic there. But
It's not the same thing as the PGA Minority Collegiate Championship,
it's
is it?
basically meandered into that. Yes. So that,
Because now they like to call it the PGA Works Collegiate
yeah, that thing's
Championship.
changed
So,
names about. I can remember three name changes from the national minority. We just called it the national minority back in the day. Then for a second, there was the um, oh my goodness, the National Minority Golf Foundation that got kind of
mhm.
absorbed into the World Golf Foundation, which drives me insane because I would love to run that, but that's another conversation. Uh, so there's, I think they had a wing, a piece of it, and then Bill Dickey's association out of Phoenix was involved before he passed. I'm not sure if he had anything to do with the college division, but I know the high school division went from the national minority high school championship to the Bill Dickey. That's basically defunct now because unfortunately he passed a few years ago, and just the organization and the funding behind that championship has disappeared. They still give scholarships to kids of color who have a golf background in college, but that's not there. But anyway, to answer your question, yeah, that thing's changed names three or four times for sure. Of course, I played it in. Ooh, I won it in '95. What I was going to say is I won that
Okay.
tournament, and some scholarship offers from HBCUs started rolling in, and two schools that I was really interested in were North Carolina A&T and Howard, and they didn't have golf teams at the time, and so
Yeah.
Jackson State showed some interest. They were by far the best golf team in the country at the time, but I was scared of Mississippi, and um, the academic reputation of Hampton kind of spoke for itself, and so ended up there, and it was the best years of my life, no doubt about it. And to answer your question, the real HU is definitely Howard because it was first, simply
Oh,
because it was
that's
first.
true. That is
Historic,
true. That is
so I
true.
was a history, political science major, and if you got to go by math and numbers, and you can, whoever comes first is it's just the way it is, and
That's
Howard's a
true.
special
That's true.
place. You know, the
It
alumni,
is.
um, it's a pretty cool list.
So going, after your departure of college, you're kind of thinking of careers and where to go. What kind of led you to get into the golf industry and tell us your journey? I know you've worked at a couple of various different places.
So, um, out of high school, this is going to go a little roundabout, and maybe all my answers are a little roundabout, but you'll get where I'm going with this. Out of high school, I worked some pretty crummy jobs in the summers because I was trying to play amateur golf, make some money, blah, blah, blah. And so out of college, I kind of realized I was going to be in the same situation, trying to make as much money as possible to go chase my golf dreams. I wanted to play professional golf.
Yeah,
And so,
that's what a lot of kids do nowadays. They say if you're coming to these big, top 10, you know, Big Ten schools or ACC, they're telling you, hey, you're playing Division golf, Division One, Division Two golf, but you're not working too much in the
yeah,
summer.
yeah.
You're playing golf.
Well, and unfortunately, it was kind of I worked a decent amount, which means my golf game didn't mature at the rate that it could have, and my skill set didn't really get that much better until I got out of college. But I worked some crummy jobs. I sold cars, I sold luggage. At the luggage store, we sold pens. I mean, I waited tables. I moved to Daytona, Florida to go work with this instructor who turned out to be a bum. So I moved back home, and all through that, as you know, I married my high school sweetheart. So she was in Raleigh and actually going to North Carolina State University while I was kind of bouncing
Hmm.
around at Hampton the entire time and coming back and visiting her, but also after college, staying close to home, especially with all my family around and my siblings. So, um, long story short, I pursued professional golf. Didn't really turn pro until I played in a Monday qualifier for an old tournament in Williamsburg called the Michelob, and really ran out of money in a hurry. And so got my amateur status back, played a lot of amateur golf, and then realized that I had something to offer in the golf space. And one of my close friends on the Hampton University golf team from Memphis, Tennessee, was working from, his name is Chucky Walker. Um, he was working for the First Tee chapter in Memphis. And, just perfect storm of conversation. I saw a commercial about the First Tee. My wife asked me what I knew about it. I said, nothing. I don't want to work in golf unless I'm playing. And then we kind of had to come to Jesus because we just got married. So you got to find something you're not miserable doing, or I'm gonna
Yeah,
kill you. And so
yeah, yeah,
and she was serious. And so I called my buddy in Memphis. And I was like, "Tell me about this first tee." He's like, "Man, you'd love it. You love it." Because back then the mission was more enveloped around bringing kids to the game who hadn't previously been exposed to it. And so it
yeah.
had the underpinnings, undertones of working with minority kids, mainly black kids,
Hmm.
and when they announced it back in '97 in Central Park with Earl Woods and George Bush Sr. and Tim Fincham, it definitely had the look and feel of, we're trying to grow the game by bringing in underrepresented populations. And obviously, since then, it's been like all kids, core values based, grow the game,
Yeah,
PGA Tour based endeavor. That's a whole different conversation. But anyway,
yeah.
so getting into the first.
But I still think it's good. But you've worked at a whole bunch of different first tee sites across the country, almost spanning 10 years. So tell us about that
Well, I only
experience.
worked at two, and so when I decided to go to the first tee, I literally made over 100 phone calls from the home office to people I was referred to people I'd met in golf, to um, people my buddy Chucky recommended that I talk to. And there were some positions available around the country um, in fundraising or in operations or in kind of high level instruction, working with the kids. And there was one in Seattle, there was one in South Central LA, there was one in uh, Louisiana. I can't remember exactly. Probably, I think New Orleans. Um, there was one shortly after available in Savannah, Georgia, and then there was one available in New York. And my wife was working to put herself through school, and so you know the deal. If you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. So ended up taking a
Uh-huh.
job with the Metropolitan Golf Association that was the parental, or we'll call it the parent nonprofit for the first tee of Metropolitan New York. And I was up there for a couple years. It was an amazing experience, based out of the Bronx, completely different than what I'd been used to in terms of, I was never a country club kid, but semi-private, nice courses in North Carolina, playing a lot of competitive golf. I was trying to qualify for the US Am, the US Mid Am. I was missing them by a shot or two on a regular basis yearly, which was making me crazy. But going up there was just, it was it really grabbed me because the kids really hadn't had an outsider in the program. There was a bunch of New Yorkers. New Yorkers can be rough, and I just,
Yeah.
I was just me. I was just, showed them love, and they showed me a bunch of love back, and I'm still in contact with those young people that I met for the first time back in late '03. um, so that was an amazing experience. And the reason why I didn't take an opportunity with the first tee, or take a job with the first tee in my area, which was the beginning is Wake County, and then turned to the first tee of the Triangle. I actually forced it to be changed to the first tee of the Triangle to envelop Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. But the organization was really young, and they had a couple interns from North Carolina State. Brian Greenwood and Brooke Adams running it at the time. They were interns, weren't even working full time. So um, it was pretty crazy, that transition, because in their first year they worked with 100 and some kids, and my first year worked with 600 kids, and I led all the classes. So
Yeah.
lots of growth, and
Yeah.
the program's still flourishing in this area. So super proud of what we accomplished while I was there.
Nice. So, what do your junior golfers overall, kind of really mean to you in your career so far? First tee is, for anybody who doesn't really know, it's kind of a life skills based through golf program, and it kind of teaches juniors the life skills of life through golf.
Yeah. So junior golf, I'd say that, I mean, those were, when I think about the most fun I had in golf, I'd probably go back to junior golf in my mind, before I'd even go to college golf. College golf was a lot of fun, but there was something on the line, my scholarship. But
Yeah,
yeah, but
scholarship. Yeah.
junior golf, it's just, the characters, the kids, the talented, wealthy kids who burned out or hated it or had overbearing parents, or um, made something out of nothing, kind of sort of, like my dad and I did. But it was just great times. And when I found myself, as I graduated from college, just based on my personality and the fact that um, I've read a lot of golf books. I've tried darn near every swing theory out there, at least that I've learned about, that I know of. Uh, and so the junior golfers at my course were drawn to me. And so I'd go play with um, let's say I was 20, in my around that 21 to 25 range before I moved to New York. I was playing more golf with, I'd play in the Wednesday or the Saturday or Sunday match every once in a while, but I was playing most of my golf with, 17 to 11-year-olds, and
Oh,
teaching
yeah.
them shots and working on short game and challenging them, and getting beat up on by young kids. It's funny, really, probably around age 23, 24, my closest golf buddy was, good Lord, I think he's 11 or 12 years younger than me, and ended up being the number one junior in the world. And a guy named Kevin O'Connell, who ironically won the US Mid Am back in, I think it was 2018, played in the Masters and all that stuff. But we were just like freaking frack. We go play ping pong after we played. Go play ping pong at his house after we played golf all day, and we'd go to Pinehurst and take lessons and stuff like that. But I just, I don't know. It just seemed really natural. And adults' values are different. They're either talking junk, or they're trying to get a drink, or they're trying to, whatever. And it's just so innocent, the desire to get better at golf. And I think that ultimately that's where I still find myself. I want to get as much knowledge and improve as quickly as possible. And I want to be around people who have that
Mm-hmm.
spirit. And if I find adults who are like that, then we're tight. But if but in most
Yeah.
cases, most juniors who want to get good are that way. And so I just, we connect pretty quickly.
So you talk about expanding your knowledge, something that's I guess shocking to me that you've never done it. You're not a member of the PGA of America, which is I find interesting. Which I would think you would be a good member in PGA of America. But tell us why you've never really, um, whether you explored the option but just thought it wasn't for you, or just didn't really have the
So
opportunity.
I've actually explored the opportunity, explored it probably a half dozen times, like seriously. So when I first decided to work in New York, the first two metropolitan New York, I talked to my boss about it, and he said, you're not going to be. He's just very short-sighted. Now that I think about this, I get a bad taste in my mouth just talking about it. But I talked about joining the PGA. I thought it would help my career, and he's like, he kind of just poo-pooed it. You know what I mean? And pretty
Yeah.
negatively. And so, and I had looked into it. It was affordable. I had time in the winter up there for sure. And I think I would say that the conversation went so badly that I started looking for other jobs, and ultimately made a phone call back down here to North Carolina just to say, hey, when you all are looking for, your first full-time hire, I'd love to be considered. And the person, I think it was the email, immediately wrote me back and said, TD, your timing couldn't have been better. We are interviewing for, or we just decided in a board meeting last week that we're going to start interviewing, and we think you'd be perfect. And so, a month later, I put in my resignation in New York. And so rather than if he had said, yeah, that's a great idea, the guy was a PGA member. But if I had,
Yeah.
if I had probably, if he had said yes and we had started the process up there, I'd be a PGA member, and I probably would have stayed in New York a bit longer. But so there was that. And then a couple times, there was an effort to, when I was at the first tee, and nonprofit jobs are intense and they're thankless. And at different times, I was teaching classes, I was observing classes, I was focused on fundraising and things of that nature. I was doing a lot. I was carrying a lot, wearing a lot of hats, and at time I actually looked at it because they were doing a little push to increase their minority representation. And I was told that if I passed the PAT, I'd get a scholarship. And this is when I was playing a lot.
Yeah.
And so Langston, I went out there,
Mm-hmm.
I passed it. I was trying to be medalist, and I caught myself, playing a little bit too aggressive and made like two double bogeys or something like that, and got nervous.
Yep,
And I was
that will
like, all
happen.
right, let's just
Uh
pass. And I
huh.
passed. I think I came in like fourth place at the course or whatever. But then I got like crickets. And so I didn't hear anything, and it was really disappointing because I was looking forward to it. This is another moment where I would have had some time. And then maybe a year or two later, the person called me like nothing had happened. Like, hey, well, if you, we'd love to have you. If you take the PAT, I think my time had gone up. I think it's a 2 year span, so it must have been 2 years. And if you
Yeah.
take the PAT, I was like, wait a minute. And I'm not going to mention the person's name because he was in charge of, um, you know, increasing minority representation. But but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, well, I did this once. Uh, can you give me some guarantees? And he's like, well, let me get back to you. I never heard anything. So, and then while I was at Duke, great man there who's basically, part of my old golf family. His name is Ed Bargwin. He's the director of golf. One time, the president of the instructional side of the PGA of America. Um, Tried to get me to do it, and I just didn't have time as a college coach. You know what I mean? While I was at Duke, between
Mm-hmm.
recruiting, tried to have a life. Um, the administrative side of being an assistant coach can be heavy at times. So, excuse me, all the time. And so, And it's changed. It's become more digital, but at the time it was a lot of paperwork, and so I would say that I didn't have the time, and I looked in it then. So maybe not a half dozen times, but definitely 4 times solid where I was like, all right, um, let's
Yeah.
try to do this. I think it would help me. And it's funny you asked me, you say I'm not part of it. It's interesting to you because um, I like to compete and I like networking and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So being a PGA member and being able to play in section events and going to section meetings and things of that nature would be great. And going to the PGA show, and heck, getting a
Yeah.
free ticket to the Masters and the PGA. Those excuse me, those perks would be awesome. Um, but not meant to be. And I have no complaints. It's all good.
Good. Good. So you touch on one of the one things, and it's a reoccurring topic in this conversation. What are your thoughts on kind of adversity and inclusion in the game of golf? It's something that's now in today's kind of form being more entered into a normal type of thing. It gets brought up. There's always diversity and inclusion committees on different types of businesses and jobs. But where do you think diversity and inclusion stands today um, in the game of golf, bringing juniors in, different minority groups in to the
Man,
game?
I'll be blunt. I don't think golf has done enough over the years. I think that as being one of the last sports to have a Caucasian only clause excluding black golfers to be able to play, and then the pioneers that were out there like Charlie Sifford and Lee Elder and Jim Thorpe and Calvin Pete, knowing what they went through as the pioneers, um, man, I feel like golf should have poured way more into diversifying and making good for all the wrong that was done. I think making Charlie Sifford a Hall of Fame member is great, but I mean he should have had a pension as big as anybody's because I mean if you don't
Yeah.
have to look very deep to understand the type of uh, situation he was in playing on a golf course. There's some crazy stories out there where um, you know not even playing PGA Tour stuff, but he had to leave town. His life was on the line, and people were yelling at him in 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 in, in tournament play, outside of tournament play. Obviously, he couldn't stay at hotels. He couldn't be in some clubhouses, and to be a winner and to be a champion and to be great in the sport like that, I just think golf needs to do more and I don't know that the people um, asking the questions uh, are talking to the people who have the answers. And so, I
Yeah.
know there's a diversity committee at the PGA show, and I was out there a couple years ago when I saw you. As a matter of fact, I guess that was 2018,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get a chance to go
Yep.
to that forum or that round table. Um, but I know a lot of the people on the committee, and it seems like they come out of those meetings and say, we talked about some decent things, but we didn't talk about anything major, and nobody really talked
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
putting
Yeah.
money behind anything.
And that's something that I've noticed. I've been to a couple of the PGA shows now, and I've been in the actual room of the roundtables, and everybody is super hype. It's exciting. Everybody's throwing out ideas. Say, hey, we need help with this. Hey, we need help with this. Oh, let's put this into the game. And everybody's like great, fine, and dandy for 3, 4, or 5 months. And then by the time we hit, April, March, when
Yeah,
when golf
it's over.
season is actually supposed to
Yeah,
start, it dies down. And I try to figure out. I actually had a conversation with one of my colleagues the other day, and we had a real deep conversation. One of the well known World Long
yeah.
Drive
I heard he was. I
guys
heard he
named
was
Maurice
very
Allen
direct and passionate.
had was a very
Yeah,
blunt some blunt
yeah.
statements at
I was
this
told
year's
that.
show, and we
Yeah,
happen to be good friends, and we've talked about it. Um, and says basically, there's a way of going about it and doing things and then saying one thing. So you can say, hey, we're gonna put um, money into this competition and this show, and then um, do certain things, and if people don't follow up and say, "Hey, this is good for the game," then
Right.
it's never going to happen. So that's conversations that I'm still building on to see. Hey, why can we just stop talking? It's great to have a conversation, but if you're not going to do anything about it, um, what what's the point of
I
trying?
mean, so let me jump in
So
real quick.
jump on.
Just real, I just, you
Yeah,
know, I think it's pretty common. It's common sense. There are a number of different levels. It needs to be a multiple pronged approach. We focus. There's junior golf. There's college golf. There's amateur golf. There's professional golf at multiple levels. There's the PGA of America, and then there's golf in general. And there needs to be a plan around each one of those. That's just 6 areas of focus. You can put one person in charge of all of them, work them to death. I could do it. You could do it. But come up with a plan,
hmm
put some money behind it, and let them go execute and let them have some authority in how to,
yeah,
put procedures in place. But I think if the powers that be, the PGA of America, the PGA Tour, and even Augusta National, um, and the USGA put some faith into, give themselves, find the person they want to lead the charge, um, a black person hopefully, and budget some money annually for 10 years, some serious money, $1 million a year at least, and come up with some plans and some marketing and some benchmarks and some achievables. I think so much could be done.
yeah. And I think that's a good case because I watch a lot of television and a lot of news and whatnot. And something that I've noticed, if you put that type of content out there, but you keep putting it on repetitive, you know, sources. We won't name names of who's who, but I think we all know who it is. Um, you're not going to get anywhere. So
Yeah.
you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result because it's just not gonna
And
happen.
what we know is
But
what
that's some.
drives participation at the micro level is having professional athletes that resemble the kids. And so what needs to be
Yeah,
focused
and
on
I
is
and
training, junior golfers to be college golfers and college golfers to be, professional golfers. And once you get another wave
yeah,
of
yeah,
black professional golfers, you get 10 black golfers out there at the various tours who are playing at a high level, you know, participation will change. The dynamics will change.
yeah. And, and I think it's good that we have players like Harold Varner, who's a pretty fresh player on the PGA Tour, been there about 3 4 years, keeps getting super close to breaking through. Will play super
Hey,
really good
Harold's
Thursday,
like
Friday,
30,
and then
right?
Saturday kind of.
He's been out there for about
Yeah,
five,
that's true.
6, 7 years. He,
Well, he's a
yeah, no
pretty
doubt.
solid player,
He's from
and
North
he keeps
Carolina. That's
getting
why I
close,
know that. That's why I
getting
know.
close to
I know his
winning.
college coach. I've known that kid for a long time. He's a great player. But anyway, sorry, I digress.
But but he
Yeah,
yeah, but he's good. I've had some video um chances with him and kind of heard his experience of what it's like for him, and he said, I've never been really criticized or anything on the golf course and really belittled or anything, which is
right.
how it should be. And then you have the older generation saying, well, that's not
And
true,
not even no older
and,
generation,
and
my
it's really
generation.
interesting.
Shoot. Yeah, I mean, I was a tweener.
Yeah,
I mean, he definitely had it easier than me. And I'll tell you from a personal level, I know some great, amazing people in North Carolina who would drive that kid to tournaments, would pay his tournament fees, would help him with his clubs, would give him free
yeah,
lessons. So in terms of a village raising him, a state raised that kid. I mean, like his golf association, the guy who's in charge of the Carolinas Golf Association on the junior golf side now. I mean, they did some special things for him, and that's out there. But man, imagine if we could have 50 of those of Harold's out there, people really, supporting
yeah,
a bunch of, young black kids who love golf and have shown some prowess because it's just a numbers game. Black kids aren't any worse. It's just having enough of them, and then the
yeah,
ones who are pretty good have them having the support and the the facilities and the equipment and the instruction to get better, I think that's what turns the tide. So anyway, I'm off my soapbox.
And I think when it relates to getting kids in college and get them through that high school level, I tell kids all the time, especially like freshmen and like incoming freshmen and seniors in high school, if you, especially for the lady side, if you can play an average round of golf, maybe shoot low 80s, high 70s, you got the potential to get in the golf scholarship. Well, it might not be a full golf scholarship, but you might get a couple dollars, especially from HBCUs and some of the other schools. Same thing for the guys. If you're shooting, you know, maybe high 70s on the high end and a solid round, a couple under par, you can get a golf scholarship. And I tell parents all the time, you know, basketball and soccer and baseball and football are great and fine and dandy, but it's not a game you can play for the rest of your life. And if you get injured, you're done. You're not playing anymore. So I say, try golf, give it a chance. It's a great sport for you to play. You learn so much more than just learn how to hit a little white ball in a hole. And you can meet a lot of lifelong people. And I think, not to get into politics, but I think the president has benefited from it. It's all a business
Without a
type of
doubt.
aspect that has helped him out and get to where he's at today. And I think if more people um, would kind of look at that and not look at it from a negative side, I think we would be in a lot better state. Because I know my friends 15, 10 years from now are going to come walk up to me, hey, can I learn how to play golf? Well, I'm like, I told you that 10, 15 years ago. Hey, learn how to play golf because, half your business dealings nowadays take place at a golf course, whether you're on the course, in the clubhouse, at the bar. But anyway, that's a whole another conversation on itself. But we got into the diversity inclusion. One of the um, I guess the perks and the benefits of it nowadays compared to several years ago, you got the opportunity to be an assistant coach at Duke, 9 tournament wins, 2 ACC championships. Your time at Duke, what was that
It
experience
was
like, and
amazing.
how was it for
It
you?
was it was amazing. I went from being an extremely competitive golfer myself on the amateur side. My last few years at the first tee, was kind of transitioning to being more of a uncomfortable executive, I guess you call it. Um, I felt like I was. They were hiring me to be the CFO than an executive director. So um, it was the timing was great. The opportunity to come along at Duke, and most of the kids at the first tee were not all that competitive, but I was absolutely drawn to the kids who were. And, because of that, a number of kids got scholarships to like Methodist University and NC State and Georgetown College. Another young man went to Guilford College on a scholarship. And so locally, and I was a first tee guy, I was a junior golf guy. There wasn't another junior golf association in the Raleigh Durham Chapel Hill area. But I started, helping kids. I wasn't an instructor, but I was instructing, and I was taking
Yeah.
kids to golf tech and giving them lessons and making tweaks and drawing lines and stuff like that, just based on
Yep.
what I knew to be true, what worked for me, and what I read and learned. And I would take lessons with all the folks in this area. So I became, kind of like I said, the junior golf guy in this area, and the Duke coach and I struck up a friendship. His name is Jamie Green, and this was completely outside of golf. He was the Duke coach, and I was the junior golf guy. And we would have wine together. He tried to teach me how to play poker. I refused because I don't want to gamble. Because the only thing I gamble on is golf. But um, and we got to be friends, and
Yep.
he got to a place where he needed an assistant coach. And when he originally got the job, I think 4 years before he even said something to me about joining his staff, I said, I've got a great job. Basically, in my email said, I've got a great job, but I'm just wondering what you'd be looking for in an assistant coach. And he sent me a nice letter back. And, um, as we got to be friends, he kind of sent, he sent, we were to, I can remember after a little event where I had him speak to some kids who came in from out of town, first tee kids. And he said, "You remember that email you sent me?" Like, what email? He's like, about being an assistant coach. I was like, oh, wow, I completely forgot about that. He's like, well, I need an assistant coach. I'm like, are you got to be kidding me? And so we started talking, and I mean, I made as much as he did at the time, and as an executive director of a growing nonprofit. And so the salary for a
Yeah,
assistant
yeah.
coach, even the ACC, you know, high profile program, wasn't what um, I was willing to take. But you know, I thought about it, and um, man, the job of being a CFO was not attractive to me. And so I called some of my old college buddies, and they, one of them said, "TD, you thought you were the coach at Hampton anyway. How can you, basically, who gets an opportunity for their first coaching job to be at Duke University? You have to do this,
Yeah.
not for yourself, but also for, you know what they say now, for the culture, but for the other kids out there." And I really started thinking, I was like, man, I, sh- I know when I was in college, I couldn't go on ACC, SEC, Pac-10, what East, whatever, and see a black
Yep.
coach. So to be at Duke, that's pretty special. There was another gentleman, Sam Puryear,
Mm-hmm.
who was at Stanford and head coach at Michigan State for a time. But at the time, I would have been the only one, and so it was a big deal. I put a lot of thought into it, took a big pay cut, but I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And even then, walking out as the new Duke coach, people heard that a guy got hired at Duke, but I was pretty hardcore. I was doing P90X. I wore my sunglasses. I wasn't out there to make friends. I was out there to win. And so that first season, uh, we won 4 times in the spring, and then won the ACC championship. So they were a strong batch of hard nosed upperclassmen. Um, Very interesting environment I walked into, but um, that was exciting and a lot of fun. We had a couple down years after that. Had to re-recruit, and then that last year I was there, won another ACC championship, which is, fun and impressive. And I still maintain relationships with the guys from just about all those classes. And there's usually not a week that goes by
Good.
when I don't talk to somebody from the class of 2012, 2013, 2013, 2014, 15, 16, 17, you know, 18, 19, 20, all those guys either I coached or I recruited. So even the current team that's there now, that whose
Right.
season got cut short by this corona craziness, I'm still.
Yeah. So and speaking on that aspect, where do you think everyday green grass sites, golf entertainment sites, professional tours, college golf, golf on TV, just golf in general? Where do you think it's gonna go with this coronavirus kind of taking over the golf scene? Obviously, I think the part that most impacts us is all these seniors and junior and upperclassmen, the freshmen that are coming in, their senior season basically getting cut short. Um, and I talk about this in my intro. Obviously this past week, the NCAA kind of granted these seniors basically an extra year, but obviously, the financial portions and how the scholarships are going to get divvied up between all these players. Obviously, you got the women's side and the men's side. Four on the women's side, 6.5 on the guys' side. It's going to pan out, and we'll see
All
where it
right,
goes.
so
But what's your thoughts on that?
forgive me for this, but there's actually 4.5 on the men's side and 6 on the on the ladies' side. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Pardon me, I
But
switched it up. Yes,
but
correct.
so ironically, I just had a conversation with a young man I worked with for a few years, just a little more informal. He's looking at, I'm just going to be specific, Florida A&M, and because 4 seniors are coming back,
Mm-hmm.
his scholarship is being moved from full to 3/4. They're not going to have any money for him the first year, and so
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a big deal. Thankfully, this is a black kid. He comes from a good family. Now, and I don't want to say money has nothing to do with the family. He comes from a
Yeah,
family
yeah.
who can afford that 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 first year in college. Um, and so it's not going to impact him dramatically. But I know that there are people out there who this is a big deal for them, and where it's gonna, what it's gonna. I guess the main shakeout, on the professional level, golf is healthy. You got Tiger out there. You've got young guys
Yeah.
coming out there. Um, I'm hearing whispers about Phil Mickelson pairing up with Tom Brady and Tiger Woods pairing up with Peyton Manning, and there being another,
Yep.
challenge out in Vegas
Yeah.
in May. I mean, that would be great for
Yep.
interest, while no one's playing sport. But, you know, in North Carolina, the courses are full. People are playing golf. I'm terrified to go out in the
Yeah.
golf course. I don't want to touch a cart, a hand, a flag stick.
Yeah. I haven't touched the club in like maybe 3.5 weeks ever since
Yeah.
this whole thing kind of started, and we thought, well, it's probably not going to be that big a deal, and then obviously have the media playing into it, and then we made the decision that, hey, once the governor shut down the golf courses and then he really put on his stay-at-home order, yeah,
Well, shoot,
absolutely have to touch
my
the club.
brightest decision of the year was to leave and I'm joking. It's actually absolute opposite. I have a student down in Palm Beach, Florida, and I left my clubs down there thinking the next time I would play would be with him. Well, I came back and stuff got crazy. And I was supposed to go back the next week, and they started, canceling flights, and my daughter's preschool got closed, and I was like, well, my clubs are down there, and it's about a month. It's been solid 3 weeks. Now, don't get me wrong. I've got 4 sets here at least. So, but
Oh,
but no
there
drivers
you
and none of
go.
my new wedges or stuff like that. So I'm going crazy. But I haven't been on a golf course, that's for sure. I don't think I'll go to a
Yeah.
golf course. The only golf facility I may go to is there's one locally that has a pond on it. I may go fishing to get out and get my cabin fever relieved.
All right. Well, what's in the bag for you currently right now? You mentioned you got 4 sets. What's your dream bag
um,
look like right
it's
now?
interesting. So, after I left Duke, I had an opportunity to be the first rep, and master fitter for PXG in North Carolina and Virginia. And so, I had a set that came with the job. And then, of all people, Bob Parsons, the owner, and I had a great relationship. He was amazing to me, like amazing to
Mm,
me, like really kind. Yeah, I mean,
he
you got
seems
to
like
be
a pretty
on this
cool
right, yeah,
guy.
be on the right side. I've seen him undress some people in public when they weren't doing their
Yeah, yeah.
job, but at the same time, for me in particular, he sent me a set of the Generation 2 irons 2 years ago, maybe. And I mean, they're great. 3 iron through lob wedge. I got, that set of irons. The irons were $450 a piece, and the wedges were the $650 wedges. And I got, you know, 60, 55, 50, and then pitching wedge through 3 iron. I mean, good Lord. I just, so I'm going to ride those
Yeah.
till the wheels fall off, the PXGs. And then I had a PXG putter that I just took out of the bag and put my Scotty Cameron Golo back in there, Circle T. And then I got a buddy who
There
actually
you
just got
go.
promoted to be the Callaway Tour Rep, who sent me a driver in a 3 wood a couple years ago now, and I'm sure I'd love the new technology, but I'm just I'm hitting it. When I hit it well enough to scare par, so I'm not looking to spend any more money. But I'm definitely an equipment junkie. When I was at Duke, I was basically on staff with Nike, and so when I pace, when I'm talking to you right now, I have an old school um, Nike Method blade iron, 5 iron in my hand right now. Yeah, so I got two
Ooh,
sets of those, and
yeah.
I've got some old Hogan irons and some probably about 2 sets of ping eye too. So I say 4 sets. It's more than that, but I'm gonna stop talking. So
but you got a pretty sweet set. I at least somewhat envy and would wanna have your position. So then you ended up a little later down the road. You
yeah,
got into
yeah,
the
yeah.
technology business. Blast Motion, this brand new thing. Everybody's kind of go digital with golf nowadays. And tell us how that
Well, I mean,
experience
the
was
timing
at
was
Blast.
perfect. The PXG job was a burnout job, launching a new product in a new territory. I was on the road. I mean, there was one point I worked 29 days in a row. And that doesn't mean sleeping in my own bed. I think I slept in my own bed maybe
Mm-hmm.
3 times during that span. Usually I was driving out of town or in and out of town quickly and making a ton of money, um, but definitely not enjoying life. And so through a mutual friend, I met one of the owners with Blast, and it's um, what I was introduced to. So there's a softball, baseball, and a golf side. And on the golf side,
Mm-hmm.
it's gotten most of its, at the time, it had most of its credibility via putting, and it measured, I want to say, 11 different parameters, and
Yep.
from timing and tempo, ratio. Yeah,
Oh,
actually,
and
the mile per hour the
speed,
putter
and
was
yeah.
traveling.
We still have ours at
Oh, that's
UVS,
right.
the one that we got from you,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just great. It's
Rotation
great. We
and
use it all the
the
time.
change in the lie angle of the putter, all great information. What people don't know, unfortunately, is that the sensor, the technology in that sensor is about as good as it gets. It's not sonar, it's not
Hmm.
Doppler. It's I cannot the term that I used about 1,000 times when I work with Blast is on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember it. But it's basically the most sensitive uh, technology out there um, for a sensor, and so it is it's a great product. And I didn't catch on the golf side for a few reasons. Number one, this is some inside information, but there was supposed to be an instructor side of the product as well. So there was, the one that I gave you was for the student or the masses, and then there was going to be, which is $150, and then there was going to be a product like I don't know if they were going to price it 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,500 was going to be the instructor piece, kind of like a TrackMan, but a much cheaper
Hmm.
version. And instead of having 11 parameters that it measured, it was going to be 60. All the 3D, XYZ axis, rotational torque stuff, information throughout the swing. And so
Oh
it
yeah, yeah.
actually measures those things. But there was a shakeup in the company, and the person who controlled the purse strings didn't want to do it the instructional way. And so actually the guy that I wanted to work with and went there to work with was basically pushed out of the company, and the vibe completely changed. And it changed within 6 weeks of me having the job. And I kind
Ooh.
of knew it was time for me to get out pretty early. Um, and so it was an
Hmm.
amazing experience because I got introduced to some new technology. I expanded my network, but I was in charge of the entire East Coast. I think it was 21 states or something like that. So that's pretty cool. I was calling, making a lot of calls, talking to,
Hmm.
high profile instructors, and visited a few of them, from New York to Florida and Georgia and things of that nature in the DC area. Um, but it was short lived experience, and thankfully, even while I was at PXG, I still maintained contact with junior golf. And as soon as I left Duke, some families reached out to me to find out if I could kind of counsel them through the recruiting process. And
Yeah, and that kind of really leads into this kind of 2 year old, still kind of fresh, brand new business that you started, TD Luten Golf. Tell us about that, how that kind of came together, which from your time at Duke, adding your own kind of personality with knowing how to fit clubs and the technology from
yeah,
Blast and
so
putting that all together.
as I mentioned, some families asked me if I could help, and um, I was pretty busy. But one kid in particular, who I had basically been his only coach while he was at the first tee, I told him when I got to Duke, I said, "Listen, I got to get you another coach. I think you could be good enough to go to a place like Duke, but you need to get another instructor because it's against NCAA rules for me to continue to work with you." And I talked to my compliance director a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And long story short, he started working with a good instructor in the area and was playing pretty well, going through the recruiting process, and would talk to me about recruiting and golf. And I was like, "You're not working hard enough. I don't want to talk to you until you go put 10 hours in your short game." And he started playing good.
All right.
Fall of his junior year and spring of his junior year, started playing better. And then going into the summer, ironically, I was going to a PXG account that I had a great relationship with. And I said, "You're coming with me," to the kid. I almost said his first name. I'm not going to say it. But, and I made him train with me. And the first hole we played at this amazing course in Roanoke, Virginia, it's literally slipped my tongue as right I was about to say it. It'll come back to me. But I mean, he hits this drive. I lean on one and I hit it about 320, and he hits his drive, and mine got a lot of roll. He hit his drive and it looked right. I kind of toe hooked mine so it got extra roll. It was downhill. He hit a high fade that went
Yep.
about 20 yards past
Yeah.
mine. So I said, "What is that?"
Oh
And
yeah.
then he had like, I want to say he had like 190 to carry a bunker on the green, and it was downwind a little bit, and or the pin was 205 or 210 or whatever. This kid hit 7 on over the green. I'm just saying, what is going? When did this happen? Yeah, and he just kind of
Right. Like
grinning
what
and just
happened?
whooped up on me for 9 holes. I was like, "All right, I'm not playing golf with you until I get a chance to practice," because obviously I hadn't been practicing. I was at PXG working my butt off. But I said, "I'm going to show you how we would train at Duke." And so for 3 days, I put him through it. I had a TrackMan. He used my TrackMan a little bit. He used the facilities at the course. They were great to him and me. Had a great relationship with the head pro who was there. And a week later, the kid wins the North Carolina Junior. And then he qualifies for like I think the Junior PGA. And aside from a slip up at one day, like the first round, I think finished like seventh or something. And so he, like from the fall of his junior year, he went from outside the top 1,000 in the country to by the um, end of his junior year summer, he was inside the top, I want to say like top 60, 50. And so, and we were talking all the time. I was telling him
There you
about how to
go.
practice. I've got some secrets that I'm not willing to share. But, I realized that what I had learned and what I put into to use at Duke, and what I learned from the cool thing about being at Duke is you get some really high ranked players who have good instructors, and I'd call them and talk to them about what they do with their
Yeah.
players and pick their brains. And next thing you know, I've got a lot of great sources of information and other coaches out there who are at other universities. So kind of had this program in my mind of how to improve and get ready for college or train better. Um, and sometimes I'll send a player to another coach and say, "You need to go work on your strategy with Scott Fawcett, or go work on your swing with this instructor in your area." What generally happens, what not generally, what 100% of the times happens with the kids that I work with is usually their equipment isn't right. And from being at Duke and fitting PXG,
Yeah.
I can see it within the first time we play 9 holes. And so now what I'll do is I'll have an evaluation
Yeah.
with them, play 18 holes. I play with them so at least they know I'm legit, and I can usually keep it around par, um,
Right.
and and I'll challenge them a little bit on the course. I'll watch their full warm up before, and then afterwards I'll put them through a couple little tests and games to see where their skill set is, and I'll put together a proposal for them and work with them for a year, and work with them on the tournament schedule and communicate to coaches on their behalf when it's time. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, a lot of what I do is coach the parents, because the parents usually don't have a clue, or they think they know everything and they don't have a clue. And so,
Yep. Mhm.
it's been pretty successful. I've got a few players at some good schools. I've got some players who just committed this past year who I'm really proud of. And, you know, the, because because of what I was doing, I wanted to stay an amateur and play a lot of golf. But what I realized is that,
Yeah.
shelf
Yeah.
life to a college preparatory coach is pretty short. If I start working with a kid when he's 15, as soon as he commits
Yeah.
to a college, he doesn't need me anymore. And so, for sake of
Yeah.
maintaining that relationship, I've been doing a bit more instruction, and so what I'm doing is spending a lot more time with my players and really rebuilding swings at times, and really getting into the nitty gritty of the short game and how to use bounce and how to hit in particular shots, and the real scientific technical side of their golf swing and their golf game, and that's been an awesome progression for me. And not sure if that's where I stay, but if it's a combination of me doing, you know, hardcore instruction and rebuilding, and then the college placement work that I'm doing right now, I'll be happy. I'm just looking for longevity
There we
and
go.
opportunities to get results, and so um, when I spend time with the families, I'm pretty selective. My first couple years, I said no a lot, and going forward, I think I'm gonna continue to have some success.
Well, there we go. So I'll skip my next question just due to confidentiality. I was going to ask you what
I
your
can do that. I
coaching
can do that.
philosophy, but if I
I can
ask
do
you
that.
that,
Um,
okay,
it's two part. So on the golf course, emotional decisions are usually the wrong decision. And so when I was at Duke, I met a guy who's too smart for his own good named Scott Fawcett. He created the decade system, and he basically quantified golf course strategy and making decisions from the tee and approach shots based on math and based on PGA Tour statistics and the book that Dr. Brody wrote years ago, Every Shot Counts. And so, um, you know, I follow basically his roadmap for course management in tournament play, and it's generally a
yep,
little bit more conservative than what most young people want to follow, but they get better immediately, and it takes pressure off of the moment. You
yep,
know what you're going to do. There's actually a card that helps you pick your target based on, and here's the crazy thing: you pick your target on your approach shot based on your shot dispersion pattern rather than where the pin is. And so you're aiming
yep.
from the edge of the green instead of from the pin or at the pin. So that's a big deal for me. Introducing my players to that. I also
Mhm.
teach them aim point, and then in terms of swing
There we go.
technique, I'm really big on a passive release. So I don't want their hands flipping at the ball at the bottom. I want
Okay.
their body to be powerful. I want them to use the ground. I want them to know how to use the ground, and I want them to be able to get maximum power, maximum efficiency, while um, ensuring that they don't create injuries in their body.
It's kind of almost like a Matthew Woods type of style because I know I've watched a couple of videos about him and how he kind of developed his swing. He's a very ground
Yeah,
planted person when he swings,
I
and
I don't
gosh, he
teach
just
people to move the
unleashes the golf
club
ball
the
when he
way he
swings.
does, though, as dramatically. But what I'll say is that
That's true.
he showed up to his instructor with that move, and the genius of his coach is that he didn't change him because he was a good player already, and he said, "Well, how do I make this better?" And
Yep.
so, what's happened is, people have bought into that swing, and it's less the swing; it's more the coach refining it and making it playable. Um, so yeah, Matt, I I recruited Matthew Wolf's best friend, who ended up going to Texas, and known Matt Wolf since he was 14. He's a good player.
Well, there you go. I'll you got two. I got kind of three more questions for you, quick ones. Um, Going forward, you kind of alluded to it already. Next 5 years,
Um,
where do you see yourself?
Doing more of the same. One of the challenges of not being a PGA member, that's why I kind of chuckled when you first asked me that, is that not many courses in my area are willing to let me set up shop in terms of the instructional phase of my business. And so I'm going to have to just see how things go. I'm willing to
Mm-hmm.
travel to I have a student that I travel to Florida 2 weekends a month. And with an 11-month old, and who's obviously
Yep.
wasn't always 11-month old, I'd like to not be home that much. So as I add more numbers to my program, I'm not going to be able to
Mm-hmm.
travel every week or every weekend. So finding something locally, local to base my kind of hang my flag or hang my hat and have a base where I can teach out of a facility is going to be key to what happens. And I'm not holding my breath. What's going on now is great. But in terms of the opportunity to work with some higher ranked players, it's out there. I haven't been willing to travel, but I think that's what I'd like to do, to work with some mini tour players, some you know, top 20 ranked college players, um, that I have relationships with, because that's just going to kind of raise my star a little bit, raise my profile. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
you're legitimized when you're teaching someone on the PGA Tour. I've seen how hard the PGA Tour instructors work, and how much they travel, and how much they're away from their family, and how bad their skin looks. I don't think I really want to be that guy, but
Mm-hmm.
it's possible it could happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but the life of
The,
you know a happy, well balanced golf coach is much more attractive than chasing stars out there on the PGA Tour.
there you go. So going into this kind of next section, um, what advice could you give to young people that are curious and getting in your line of work, getting into the golf industry, that aren't on kind of 100% ground of knowing, hey, I want to get into this professional golf kind of business, coaching, teaching, kind of style of a life?
The
What
first
advice
thing I
could
would
you give
say
to
is the
them?
first, I hate to use this term, but the jobs that you take before age 30 are going to suck. So go in there, work hard, put yourself in environments that you're not sure you're going to be able to, um, meet the challenge, and go meet the challenge, whether it be um, in golf, outside of golf, at a certain course, at a certain company. You're probably gonna have to move. Probably gonna have to take some financial chances. Don't take any financial risks. Don't live beyond your means, but go chase it. Go see what's out there, and go gain as much knowledge, and gain as and broaden your network and your understanding of the golf industry and the golf world, and then reassess around age 28, 29, 30, and hopefully by then that person will know what they more than what they do like, what they don't like. If they know what they don't like, then they'll be able to kind of
Hmm.
mark
So,
those off their list, and steer towards you know some of the other options.
so basically, what you're saying that uh, be okay getting uncomfortable with what you're doing, essentially, before you get comfortable. Because if
Yeah,
you get
well,
comfortable with what you're
there's
doing,
a
you're not in the
I
right
know a
spot.
lot of people who come out of the PGM programs, and they come in at certain courses, and looking to be the head pro or be a head instructor and stuff like that. And generally, if you look around the board, not many people in those roles are under the age of 40, and a lot of them are over 50. And
Hmm.
the stars are the ones in their mid to high 30s who get in that position, and they've worked with every named instructor, or they've worked at this course and that course. So I know a guy who's I think he's the head pro at Oakmont. I think he was 36. He's pretty young when I met him, but he had been at like Seminole and maybe Pine Valley. He had a resume that was really impressive. And so I would say
Yeah,
go
yeah.
build that resume. More than being uncomfortable, go build a resume that you can look out 20 years and say, huh, I put myself in some pretty cool places and got some cool experiences and have more knowledge, and I'm very marketable in terms of looking for the job that I want. I think I think at an early age it's important to look 20 years out, which is really hard to do. I know when I was 22, 25, it would have been hard for me to look at
Hmm.
where I am now, but darn it, I'm here, and I don't know that I this is what I would
Right.
have expected, but I'm pretty darn happy with where I am.
So
Exactly.
it's playing in backwards essentially. It's kind of what I'm getting at. is planning backwards. Kind of pick a goal, whether that's a smaller goal, kind of more detailed, or kind of a broader range of a goal, and work from there and go backwards. And how do I get to that point in my career, or in my life, whether it's golf, whether it's business, other, outside of sports, medical field, you name it.
That's what
It's
you
all
hit
it's
it on
all
the
the
head.
same.
So let's jump back in it.
Yeah, so we had a little bit of audio issues here, folks. Gotta love technology from streaming halfway across the country. Um, but we were saying that I hit the nail on the head when it comes to kind of branching out and planning backwards. 20 years, and then finding that goal for you, and where you're going with your career.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I mean, to use a golf analogy, when you're playing a practice round, it's important to, get to the green and look at the hole backwards and figure out which angle it's best to approach certain pins from, which side of the fairway, or, which club to hit off the tee. You know, I think that analogy works in terms of, just looking at your destination and building the resume and the experiences that make you um, qualified to be in that position in the future.
There we go. So my last question, the question of that everybody wants to know, now with having a golf business and kind of your own personal brand of TD Luten Golf, where can the good people find you and connect with you on social media?
I have, I'm pretty quiet, so I probably need to expand. And I have a wife who's a marketing expert who's on me about that. So, but to answer your question, I'm only on Instagram. I have just at TD Luten and at TD Luten Golf. I look to expand that in the future, but right now my capacity is small, and so the idea of a website and getting a lot of interest and not being able to teach locally didn't make sense, and so right now I have more interest than I can handle. So, my little bit of Instagram posts rarely. I really haven't done anything big lately. It's just a story here and there where I'm at a pretty cool location like Mellis Golf Club in Florida, or the Breakers Golf Club or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
or interacting with one of my golf instructor buddies, and kind of shadowing them or something like that. That's about all I've posted in the past year. But yeah, I'll tune that up.
There we go. Just for you folks, he's gonna tune it up. TD Luten of TD Luten Golf. Thank you so much for spending about the last half an hour and a half with me. Uh, Great conversations. There's a whole bunch of different nuggets and a whole bunch of different people can join and just sit back and relax and listen to this great conversation that we had. So I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
What a great conversation with TD Luten. Wonderful, wonderful guy. Great businessman, great instructor, great all-around person to have on the show. I hope you guys learned a lot. But before we go, I just want to let you know on a couple quick things. Check them out at Podcast Talk of the Shore. It's a brand new athletic podcast with my good friend Ralan, Wardlaw of Maryland Eastern Shore Athletics. We get to sit down with the players and coaches of the athletics department at Maryland Eastern Shore to kind of see what they're like outside of the jersey and off the field. So tune in to that. We have a whole bunch of great episodes, 9 episodes. We also have an audio version and a visual version. Just search #TalkShore or search Talk of the Shore podcast to find that great show. And also, if you're interested in playing some competitive golf on the amateur side, check out the tour sponsored by Under Armour for some great opportunities on the Eastern Shore of Maryland and nationally. Just visit ESG Magazine, click on the tour info tab for all that great information and to sign up. Now, we can't forget about the juniors. All new this year, check out the Junior Tour powered by Under Armour. 9 leagues from across the country will tee it up in 6 9-hole matches where the top 12 players of each region will advance to the Under Armour Junior Golf National Championship this summer in Orlando, Florida, at none other than the happiest place on turf, Walt Disney Golf. For more information and to sign up, just visit uagolftour.com. And you guys want to know who's going to be on the show next week? Great guy, super high energy, and you guys just don't want to miss it. He's definitely a great sports reporter on the rise from Syracuse University, covering the Orange and a whole bunch of different great topics. Will Scott, former Golf Channel intern, will be on the show next week, so you don't want to miss that. And if you want to connect with me on social media, I'm at Langston Frazier on Twitter. Let me know who you want to hear from, what topics you want me to cover, using the hashtag TLFSPod. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and rate, and most importantly, don't forget to share the podcast. You can find the Langston Frazier Show podcast wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Anchor, and Justin. We're now available on TuneIn, so make sure you subscribe and you really get into those episodes. I got a bunch more coming soon, along with so many other platforms. You want to really be locked in and get ready, because we're getting ready to take off. Until next time, I'm Langston Frazier. Stay safe, stay healthy, practice safe social distancing. Don't touch your face. Most importantly, wash your hands. And we'll see you back here next week for another episode of the Langston Frazier Show.